Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to bring you like my own personal round of the historical romance readathon. This is a readathon that is normally run by Jess from Peace Love Books, Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers, and Lisa from Remarkably Lisa. This is not an official round of that readathon at all. It's just that it is now November and I realized that I didn't read a single historical romance in October because I wanted to read all of the spookier books, and I just don't think of historical romances when I think of Halloween or spooky season, and so I didn't read any. And I am like dying to read historical romances now. So I think this week I'm just gonna binge a bunch of them, and I thought that I would vlog it, which is also kind of weird because this is the first time that I'm ever filming 2 reading vlogs in a row, because I just finished filming my Halloween Smutathon vlog. I'll link that up in the cards above. I just finished filming that and editing it last night. So it's kind of weird to quickly turn around and film a completely different kind of reading vlog. But yeah, so basically, the book that inspired this vlog idea was A Reckless Match by Kate Bateman. I started this late last night and was just completely obsessed with it and finished it earlier this evening, and I absolutely adored this. I gave it 5 stars. Let me just tell you a little bit about the plot though. We have Maddie and Griff. Maddie is a Montgomery and Griff is a Davies. These 2 families have been feuding for hundreds of years, a la Romeo and Juliet, but it's a bit more lighthearted than Romeo and Juliet. Like, yes, there have been murders in the past, but really this is just like a petty feud that has been going on for at least like 500 years. And so basically every year on the spring equinox, each family sends a representative to meet up with the other representative, because there is this like random stretch of land. It's like a buffer zone between the 2 estates. And basically, if a representative doesn't show up, then that land is forfeit to the other family. And so from the first few pages, when we see Maddie and Griff do this like annual meeting, this enemies to lovers vibe was absolutely everything. I was so here for it. The banter from the moment that they meet on page was just like delicious and delectable, and it was just incredible. And so I will say the plot itself, like the non-romance plot, was just like, it was good. It wasn't great. I really loved this so much because of the dynamic between these 2 main characters and seeing them develop a relationship into actual love when they both thought that they hated each other, but they never did. I really feel like Kate Bateman is coming into her peak of writing for sure, because I read her most recent series, which the last book in that series was The Princess and the Rogue, and I adored that book as well. Gave it 5 stars. The other 2 books in that series I think I gave like 4 stars. So with this book and The Princess and the Rogue, I think she is really coming into her own as a historical romance author. It was just so good. I thought the pacing was really great as well. Yeah. It was really well done, and I'm excited to read more books in this series because we did get to see cameos from the 2 main characters that the next book is going to be about, and I'm already just really excited about the dynamic between those 2 main characters. So yes, we definitely started this vlog off with a bang. I'm so excited that I loved this one as much as I did. And then the book that I'm planning to jump into later tonight once I'm done filming for the day is The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe. This is book 2 in her newest series. I have no desire to read book 1, which was, I believe, The Heiress Hunt, something like that, because so many people that I follow have given that book like 2 or 3 stars. I haven't seen one person I know give it 5 stars. It just seems like that book is kind of a flop. Whereas this book, I saw Crystal's Goodreads review, Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life. I'll link her channel down in the description. I saw her review and she said that this is Joanna Shupe at her finest, and when you tell me that, that just makes me so excited because I have read 2 of Joanna Shupe's most recent series. I absolutely adored all 3 books in her most recent series, which was like The Rogue of Fifth Avenue, The Prince of Broadway, and The Devil of Downtown. I can't remember what that series was called, but I think I gave all 3 of those books 5 stars. And then I loved A Notorious Vow, which was the last book in her 400 series. So I know that I've loved some of her books in the past. And so when you tell me that this is Joanna Shupe at her finest, yeah, that makes me even more excited. So yeah, like I said, I'm definitely going to jump into the Joanna Shupe book next, but I also have a couple of physical books that I want to read. The first one is The Governess Game by Tessa Dare. Here is the step back for this one. This is going to be a reread for me. This is book 2 in the Girl Meets Duke series. I gave it 5 stars the first time that I read it. I'm sure I'm gonna give it 5 stars again. I've just been kind of slowly rereading this series because I am just hoping and praying that The Bride Bet, which is book 4, comes out at some point next year. I know that's asking a lot, but I hope that that actually happens. And then I also have the audiobooks for this little Lisa Kleypas duet. The first one is Then Came You. I actually started this back in like May or June, just reading it physically, but then I found out that like new audiobooks of this duet were coming out, and so I decided to just kind of hold out until I could get those audiobooks. So yeah, but I was really enjoying the setup of this one when I did read it. And then Dreaming of You is the second book in this little duet. I believe it centers around a gambling hell. Super duper pumped to read both of these. Every Lisa Kleypas fan that I know, I'm pretty sure this is like their favorite Lisa Kleypas book, or at least like Derek Craven is their favorite hero among Lisa Kleypas books. So really excited about that. I also have a bunch of Lorraine Heath audiobooks checked out from Hoopla, because Hoopla literally has every Lorraine Heath audiobook, which is incredible. At least like my Hoopla does. And then I just have like a couple of other random historical romances as well. I also have some thrillers checked out from Libby that I need to read ASAP. So this might be a historical romance and thriller reading vlog. We will just have to see, but I will definitely talk to you guys at some point tomorrow. So it is just about noon. I am feeling kind of tired because I tend to edit my videos like in the middle of the night, pretty much. Like I started about like 11, maybe midnight, and editing and uploading video can take me up to like 2-ish hours, something like that sometimes. So waking up the morning after one of my late night editing sessions is always kind of rough. I've been working my way through The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe. I am, I believe, 43% of the way through. And to say that I'm loving this is like the understatement of the year. Oh my goodness. This truly is Joanna Shupe at her finest. This is, I don't know, this might be my favorite Joanna Shupe book, which is really saying a lot because I have absolutely adored, especially The Prince of Broadway and A Notorious Vow are probably like my 2 top favorite books by her. But I've also really enjoyed some of her other backlist books. Okay, so let's set up the plot because it is absolutely everything. I am obsessed. So we have Kit and Alice. They are at this house party in Newport. By the way, Joanna Shupe writes her historical romances in the Gilded Age, so around the 1890s in New York, usually New York City, but this series takes place in Newport, which is like a beachy town, which I love those vibes. That kind of gives me a little bit of like summery vibes. And Alice is very shy. She's very much a wallflower. And so through observing Kit, I guess the first couple of days at this house party, because like y'all, back in the day, house parties were nuts. Like you would literally go stay at somebody's house for like a week, maybe more, and like every day you would party. Like how freaking awesome does that sound? Like imagine if parties were still like that today. So yeah, like the first couple of days of this party, she just like observes Kit, and he seems like this ladies' man, and it's just so easy for him to talk to women, and he's handsome. And so she just like randomly goes to his room one night and asks him to give her seduction lessons so that she can attract a man and eventually get married. That is her goal. And so at first Kit is definitely taken aback by this, mainly because I mean Alice just seems like such a shy person, yet she's coming here and asking like almost a complete stranger for lessons in seduction. But he's also just very intrigued by her, and so he agrees to do this. And oh my god guys, like the dynamic between these two characters, like on the one hand, it's so sweet because we get to see Alice and Kit become really close friends, but it's also really hot. And I'm just like obsessed with these scenes when he's giving her these seduction lessons. And it's so funny because it's like the joke is on him because he'll give her a tip, she'll do it, and then he realizes just how insanely attracted he is to her, and so he's kind of like losing his mind around her. And I also really like that both of these characters, while they seem very different, they're actually very similar in a lot of ways because they've both kind of been, I guess you could say, like limited and repressed because of their parents. Like Kit's father has always just told him that he's selfish and shallow. That's all he's ever gonna be, is just a pretty face. That's his value. And so Kit truly believes that. And we see throughout this book that he's so much more than that. He's a really sweet guy. Yes, he's definitely kind of a rake, kind of a ladies' man, but that's also entertaining to read about. And then Alice has been repressed into this very shy wallflower because her mother is just so verbally abusive to her and just awful. It's just really great to see them kind of get each other out of their shells, out of their like different shells in a way, I guess you could say. So I'm just absolutely obsessed. The writing is top notch. The pacing is fantastic. I am just like on the edge of my seat reading this book because I just can't wait to see what happens next between these two characters. And we're seeing that they're very attracted to one another, but they don't feel like they can ever confess that because Kit really believes that Alice just wants to find like a more serious man to marry, and Alice just feels like she's not like a woman enough for Kit. I am actually going to eat some lunch and then dive right back into this book. I have about like 7 hours left of the audiobook, like I said, about 43% of the way through, and I'm excited to read more, but I also don't want it to be over. Ugh, this is one of those books that reminds me why I love romance so much, because it just makes me so giddy and happy to read about Kit and Alice. And also reading books that are this amazing, it just baffles me that some people trash the romance genre so much, because I'm just like, do you not want to be happy? Like, books like this make me insanely happy, which then affects my life outside of reading, which is great. Like, we all love to be happy, right? So I'll probably give you guys an update maybe in the early afternoon tomorrow. All right, happy Wednesday, everybody. I do want to point out before I get started on this reading update that we do have some work being done in our house at the moment. So if you hear any hammering or anything like that, that is what's going on. For those of you guys that may not know, Hurricane Ida happened and our house did get some pretty significant damage, so that's why we're getting work done on the house. So reading update, I finished 2 books since I last spoke with you guys yesterday. So yesterday afternoon I finished The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe, and ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my new favorite Joanna Shupe book and my new favorite historical romance in general. I know. I am just head over heels for this book. I mean, I knew from the second that I saw this cover that it was going to be a special book, or at least I hoped that it would be a special book. Let me tell you the reasons why I love this book so much. You know, I stated in yesterday's update the basic plot, and I just like loved Kit and Alice's relationship, how it started from like these lighthearted seduction lessons, and then how their relationship evolves into this really sweet friendship, and then as we go along it evolves into this just like breathtakingly swoony beautiful romance. It's just stunning. I absolutely love it. It is just so good. I just feel like everything from like the steam to the chemistry between these two characters to the character development, like everything was just immaculate to me, and it makes me so excited to see future books from Joanna Shupe, because this book at least really feels like she is coming into her writing prime. It is unfortunate that the book before this, called The Heiress Hunt, that got pretty mixed, kind of negative reviews overall. Like on Goodreads it has like a 3.4 average rating, and that makes me not ever want to read it, unfortunately. But what I will say, what's interesting about this book is that this actually takes place at the same time as book 1 in the series, because we're seeing scenes that I assume happened in the first book are kind of going on in this book as well. Something else that I wanted to point out about Kit that I know I forgot to put in my Goodreads review, so I need to remind myself to edit my Goodreads review, but I adore the way this man loves and respects women. Okay, let's talk about it. We've all read those romances where the hero is a rake. There's that scene usually where they confess their love to the heroine. The heroine second guesses it because of how many women he's been with. Usually the heroine just doesn't think that she would be enough for him. So then the hero will say something along the lines of, none of those women matter, I don't care, you're the only one that matters. And that always makes me roll my eyes a bit, because that just comes off as you saying, you don't give a shit about women, you used those other women, and you're kind of a piece of shit. But then we have Kit. So Alice asks him about the women that he slept with in the past. Basically because she really doesn't think she's woman enough for him in that sense. And he goes on to say that, you know, he truly respects every woman that he's taken to bed. He truly believes that they gave him a gift when they were intimate together and they just had good times together. But that shouldn't reflect the relationship that he has with Alice or the feelings that he has with Alice. And I loved that. I loved the way that he spoke about these other women. It was just very respectful, very like almost loving. Like he really did care about these women that he was intimate with in the past. And so we stan Kit. Yeah, so good. I will say, content warnings, there is death of a really close friend of Kit's towards the end. And it's also a pretty horrific death, so I would also know that going in, because obviously he feels a lot of grief afterwards. And then alcoholism having to do with the friend that dies. So of course I gave this 5 stars. Do not be shocked if this ends up as one of my top 10 favorite romances of the year. It was fantastic. So then last night I started my reread of The Governess game by Tessa Dare. I actually finished it last night too. I started this at around like 9 p.m. and I was finished with it by like 12:30, 1 a.m., something like that. The audiobook was only like 7-ish hours and I was listening to it at like 3.3 times speed while also following along with the physical book. So I just flew through my reread and I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time. For those of you guys that don't know, this is book 2 in Tessa Dare's Girl Meets Duke series. This is about Alexandra. She basically gets roped into this job as a governess for this guy Chase, who basically is a duke. He will be a duke very soon. And with that estate and title came these 2 young girls, Rosamond and Daisy. So they are his wards. Rosamond is 10, Daisy is 7. And so yeah, Alexandra becomes their governess, and along the way, things happen between her and Chase. Chase is also a rake, for sure. And I think it's very interesting how Tessa Dare explores that character type in this book. I just feel like she kind of does something unique with Chase's character. And while their romance is definitely not my favorite Tessa Dare romance, it was still fun. And what makes this book a 5-star for me still though is Rosamond and Daisy, these 2 kids that she's looking after, because they're so morbid and it's absolutely hilarious. I laugh out loud so many times when I read this book. Also, something that I forgot about this book is there is a steamy scene that happens in the library of Chase's house with Chase and Alexandra, and it a chef's kiss. And then also Ash, who's the hero from book 1 of this series, The Duchess Deal. I adore the cameos that he makes in this book. He is just so funny. He's just a straight up asshole. Like, he's an asshole to everybody that he doesn't like, which is most people. He doesn't like a lot of people. And so it's just so funny to see him interact with Chase throughout this book. And then they start to become friends, like reluctantly by the very end. So yeah, loved doing that reread. Then going forward with today. So I remember mentioning on Monday that I feel like this week is going to be me reading historical romances, but then also thrillers. 2 very different genres, right? So I'm going to try 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. I'm a little iffy about this thriller. So I think what I'm gonna do is read like the first couple chapters, and if I'm not like completely captivated, I will DNF it. Because first of all, it has gotten a lot of mixed reviews. I've seen a lot of people on Goodreads give this 3 stars, which that does not appeal to me. I do not want to read a 3-star book. And also, this is about COVID. Because essentially we have 2 main characters, they start a relationship with each other, COVID lockdown happens, and then they are forced to like move in together. Like they're forced to stay together during lockdown. And then I think one of them ends up getting murdered like at the very beginning of the book. So we will see if, like I said, if I'm not captivated by this book, I'll DNF it. And I have a couple of other thrillers on my radar, so we'll just have to see. But with all that being said, I will definitely update you guys tomorrow, probably like the early afternoon, something like that. Happy Thursday, everybody. Looks like we had a cold front come through maybe last night at some point, because now the temperature is like, the high is like 60, 61. And so I'm hoping to go on a walk at the park with my mom and our dog Chloe. Let us do a reading update. So yeah, yesterday I tried reading 56 Days. I got 10% in and I put it down. I DNF'd it. Two things. One, yeah, I'm not ready to read a book about COVID. Like, I don't think really any of us are, right? I mean, this is something that we're still living through, but this book takes place at the time of lockdown. That was a very scary time for everybody. I just like, I have no desire to read about that time, right? And then also like, this is a murder mystery, and I just like wasn't all that captivated by the characters that we were centering around. So yeah. It didn't speak to me, so I put it down. So instead, I still wanted to read a thriller, so I went with His and Hers by Alice Feeney. So I read Rock, Paper, Scissors by this same author in September, and I really loved it. I almost gave it 5 stars. It was like a 4.5 star for me. That is Alice Feeney's most recent release. This book, I believe, is Alice Feeney's release before Rock, Paper, Scissors. It's about a divorced couple. So basically we have Anna, the ex-wife. She is a news broadcaster. We have Jack, the ex-husband, who is a detective. And so this murder happens in this small town that I believe they're both from. And Anna is very reluctant to cover it as part of her job. And Jack believes that Anna is involved somehow. And things go on from there. The setup makes it sound like it's strictly a murder mystery, but it really is so much more than that. Like, it ends up being like a serial killer thing, but there's just also so much drama, so much tea having to do with Anna and her life in particular. And there's some drama with Jack as well. It just, yeah, I don't know. I don't want you to think that this is just a murder mystery. It is more than that. Lots of content warnings though. I mean, thrillers, you know, thrillers tend to be pretty dark. But there is like toxic friendship going on. There's bullying, rape, murder, violence, like, you know, of course. So just know that before going into it. I gave this 4 stars. After reading 2 of Alice Feeney's books, I've realized that she does this thing where she goes like one plot twist too far. It's very strange. She has a way of doing her endings that I'm just not a huge fan of. Like, we get all these plot twists towards the end and it's great. I'm having a good time, right? And then like right before the end, she includes that one last plot twist, and in both books, it just did not work for me. I felt like it was just like a little too much, a little too over the top. It was very solid though. I thought it was very well paced. I like the way that Alice Feeney writes, and I am looking forward to reading more future books from her because I loved Rock, Paper, Scissors so much. I don't know if I'm gonna read any more thrillers this week. I kind of just wanna deep dive into historical romances some more. So late last night, I actually started Annie's Song by Katherine Anderson. This is a book that came highly, highly recommended from Jen from the Book Refuge. I will of course link her down in the description below. She raved about this one recently, and I'm gonna go into the plot, but just know that this is heavy. Not a happy story, and I'm 30% of the way through, and it's, yeah, parts of it are hard to read. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm hoping that the romance ends up being as beautiful as Jen says that it is. So we have Annie. Her family believes that she is touched or mentally disabled in some way. Basically, when she was a kid, she had a really bad fever, a really bad illness. And in actuality, that caused her to become deaf. But her family doesn't know that. They never like took her to like a real doctor who is a specialist in these kind of things to like get a real diagnosis, right? So they just believe her to be touched and simple. Something that I want to mention right off the bat is that this was written in 1996. So there is some language used in this book, like the R word, for instance, that today we know is not okay to use, but I guess in the 90s it was still okay to use. I don't know. And I guess that was a term that they would have used in the 1890s because that's when this book takes place. So let's continue a bit with the setup. Basically, in the prologue, this horrible man Douglas rapes Annie. Then Alex, who is Douglas's older brother, also finds out. Understandably, he is livid at his younger brother Douglas, kicks him out of the house, basically threatens to kill him if he ever like shows his face. And at first nothing really happens, but then 4 months later, Annie's parents discover that Annie is actually pregnant. So then Alex comes back to Annie's parents and offers to marry Annie and to take in what will eventually be his niece or nephew as his own child. So yeah, problematic things are definitely happening in this book. You know, for one thing, this whole marriage business happens without Annie's consent. She has no idea what's going on because nobody knows how to communicate with her. And where I left off, basically, Alex's housekeeper, Maddie, is the only one that's kind of figured out how to communicate with her, and they are planning on taking Annie to Portland. This takes place in Oregon. To get her actual tests and an actual diagnosis as to what may be wrong with her, what's going on with her, right? I am just so captivated by the writing. Like, I can't stop reading. This was kind of a long update. I need to edit this down somehow, but with all that being said, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Hey guys, it's Friday. First things first, before getting into the reading update, we are still having work done on our house. Currently, they're putting in flooring downstairs, so you are going to hear a lot of hammering, maybe even some sawing downstairs, but I really wanted to do an update now before it got too late in the day. See, you might be able to hear sawing. But so let's give an update on Annie's Song by Katherine Anderson. I finished this last night. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I am sad that I didn't end up loving it as much as I was hoping to, and as much as Jen and other booktubers that I follow do. But I think at the end of the day, one, it was too long. I think this book is over 400 pages, and I just, it felt too long. It was like a 15-hour audiobook. And the part in particular that I felt was too long was this whole first chunk where nobody knows yet that Annie is deaf, right? So they're all just treating her like she's mentally disabled, and like back then, people didn't treat mentally disabled people well. And so for this first, like, I think it's like the first like 30% or so of the book, Annie is just suffering, and it just made my heart hurt, and it just felt unnecessary. Like, it just went on for too long. The pacing was off at times. Also, I want to point out that I did do a pretty lengthy Goodreads review about this book, so if I forget anything, just check out that review if you want to know more about my thoughts. So the reason why I didn't give this a lower rating than 3.5 stars is because there were some truly stunning and beautiful moments between Annie and Alex, our hero and heroine. You could really feel the love between these two people, and I loved Annie's character. I really did. Alex, I liked him. I didn't love him. My expectations were set pretty high for him, and while there were some amazing moments where he was just so genuine in how he felt and treated Annie, there were other moments that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about him, to be honest. Like, there's one scene I can remember in his inner monologue. He's talking about how he's just insanely attracted to Annie, and how he like almost considered himself to be like saintly for being able to resist jumping her bones, essentially. And I was just like, given what Annie's been through and her trauma, like, I just feel like that was just kind of weird, and like, it was just like a little icky. Yeah, so I liked him. I didn't love him. I feel like there were a couple of other scenes throughout this book where I was just like a little like, I don't know about this with Alex. I left this book feeling like, as much as Alex tried to give Annie the world, I still feel like she deserved more. I don't know. She just suffered so much for the first 20 years of her life. And yeah, so I'm still left, upon reflection, just feeling like a little bit sad for Annie still. I don't know. And I know that Alex tried his best, but it's like, obviously I'm a little bit conflicted about this book, right? So then late last night, I decided to go into Then Came You by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 1 in, it's like the Gamblers something duet, because it's this book and then Dreaming of You is the second book in this little duet. And you guys, okay, first of all, I am on page 226, that's chapter 9. I think that's just about 60% of the way through. I am absolutely obsessed with this book. So this is the book that I had tried reading back in May or June or something like that. I got about 30 pages in, and I had heard somewhere that they were redoing the audiobooks with Mary Jane Wells narrating them, and so I was really excited about that, so I decided to wait for those audiobooks to come out. I don't think those audiobooks are ever coming out now, but I did find an audiobook with Rosalind Landor as the narrator, and I really enjoy her narrations of historical romances, so I was able to get that audiobook off of my Libby app. So I've been listening to that and reading this at the same time physically. So I remember really enjoying the setup of this when I tried reading it a few months back, and these two main characters, Lily and Alex, I am just obsessed with. I feel like I use the same words over and over again to describe my 5-star reads, but it is what it is. I have never claimed to be a very eloquent reviewer. So yeah, we have Lily. She loves to shock London society. Like literally the first scene of this book is her on a yacht with the King of England, and they're on the Thames. Her hat flies into the river and she decides to shock everyone. She jumps out of the boat and into the river, gets her hat, and then is taken back onto the boat. And that's just like an iconic opening scene. At the very beginning of the novel as well, we see that Lily is dealing with some secrets, definitely some darker things in her past. Basically, when she was younger, she had a daughter named Nicole. Nicole is no longer with her, but we don't know any details. Like, did she die? Like, what happened to this little girl? We have no idea, but she's dealing with a lot of pain having to do with that. And so her way of coping, I think, is to shock London society and be this party girl, right? And then we have Alex. He's the Earl of Rayford. He is like the opposite of her in every way. He is currently engaged to Lily's younger sister, Penelope. And so Penelope is in love with this guy, Zachary. They're in love with each other. And Lily is good friends with Zachary. And so she decides to go and sabotage this engagement between Alex and her sister Penelope, because she knows that Penelope would never be happy being with Rayford. So yeah, chaos just kind of ensues from there. I adore this hate to love dynamic that we have going on with Alex and Lily. I don't think I've ever read a romance quite like this before, because the way that these two people hate each other at the beginning, I mean, they're pretty passionate about their hate for each other, but there's also like a lighthearted tone to it somehow. Like, I don't know, there's an animosity, but there's also something that's funny about it. I don't know quite how to explain it. But yeah, it's so good. I mean, as we progressed in the story, things have gotten more serious between the two of them, and we're seeing the tide turn from hate to now it seems like they're kind of starting to understand each other. Alex has definitely started to fall for Lily. Lily falling for Alex, not so much yet, at least. There's definitely just a lot of angst and a lot of drama going on with these two characters, be it separately or with them having any kind of romantic relationship, right? So there's just a lot that these characters have to go through before they get to their happily ever after. I'm absolutely loving this. This is definitely one of my favorite Lisa Kleypas books that I've ever read. I don't know yet if I love it more than Again the Magic. I read that earlier this year and just absolutely adored that one. This one just has a different vibe from Again the Magic. I am really excited to jump back into it. So yeah, I'll definitely update you guys at some point tomorrow. Happy Saturday, everybody. It is a gorgeous day here, and if you hear music, there's definitely a really loud birthday party going on in our neighborhood, which, like, why didn't they invite me? But also, like, introvert life, I probably wouldn't have gone anyway. Reading update. I have quite the reading update for you guys, because last night I finished Then Came You by Lisa Kleypas, and then I'm also in the middle of reading Dreaming of You, also by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 2 in the same little duet. This was absolutely spectacular. Another new favorite historical romance of mine. Like, this reading week has been amazing, and I'm so glad that I decided to vlog it, because I've just been finding, again, some new favorite historical romances, and I've just been having like the time of my life with my reading week at least. So let's kind of wrap up my thoughts here. I adore Alex and Lily, our two main characters. I adore them both separately and I adore them both together. Let me explain why. Both of them seem one way on the surface, but they both have a lot of different layers to them underneath. So with Alex, he just seems like, I don't know, an arrogant asshole. But throughout the book, we see that he's actually a very sweet and devoted man, not only to his younger brother who he's taking care of, but also to Lily. He falls hard for her first. And he's just so devoted to her. Yes, he becomes possessive as well. But I love possessive heroes, so I definitely don't mind that. And then Lily, yeah, she seems like a shallow party girl on the surface, right? That's how we first see her at the very beginning of this book. But we see that there are so many layers, so much pain from her past. She's actually a very selfless and genuine person. She loves rescuing people, helping others out, but she won't like rescue herself. And so one of the many beautiful things about this book is that we get to see Alex kind of be her rescuer. Yeah, I really don't know how to explain this hate to love dynamic between them. Just the way that they provoke and challenge each other really throughout pretty much the entirety of the book. It's unlike anything else I've ever read in a romance novel. This book also has a lot of drama, a lot of angst, and to be real with you guys, Alex and Lily, they do hurt each other throughout this book. This book gets very messy between the two of them. It's definitely not a clean cut or sweet romance. I mean, there's sweet moments for sure, but like it's very messy. But I feel like that's inevitable with these two characters just because of how they start off from the beginning and how they find their way to a happily ever after. Like, it's gonna get messy. Of course, it's gonna get angsty, right? And I'm not somebody that needs a lot of angst in my romances because a lot of the time I do enjoy low angst and sweeter romances, but the way that it was done here was just chef's kiss. And there's also, without spoiling anything, there's just this beautiful reunion that happens at the end, and then the ending in general was just so stunning that it made me cry. So Lisa Kleypas, you finally did it, girl. You made me cry with one of your books. The ending is just absolutely everything, especially considering like all of the drama and all of the angst and all of the pain that we went through with this story. Like, they just deserved the most happiest of ever afters. It was fantastic. I could rave and rave and rave and rave about this book. I'm going to stop myself. I wrote a pretty lengthy Goodreads review as well, so if you want to see even more thoughts, that review is out there. So then late last night, I decided to jump right into Dreaming of You, which is book 2 in, I believe the duet is called like The Gamblers of Cravens or something, because it centers around, both books kind of center around Derek Craven and his gambling den that he owns. And so in this book, Derek Craven is the hero this time. And the heroine, she is Sarah. This is so cool. I really didn't know the premise of this book before I started reading it. I had just heard people over the years on Romance BookTube just mentioning this book in general and how much they love Derek Craven, but I really didn't know anything about the plot. So we have Sarah Fielding. She is an author, and her claim to fame was this book called Matilda, which is a fictional book about a prostitute. And so that book like blew up because it really brought to light that sex workers are real people too, right? And just how hard a life that was back then, being a prostitute, and still to this day is a very hard life to live. And so that was her claim to fame. And so now at the beginning of this book, she is researching a novel that is going to take place in a gambling hell or a gambling den. And so basically at the very beginning, she saves Derek Craven's life. To repay her for that debt, Derek allows her to hang out at the gambling den and to ask any questions that she may have about how it's run, the patrons, the people that work there, different things like that. And things go on from there. I'm about like 42% of the way through. I'm really enjoying it so far. I knew that Derek was going to make for a very interesting hero because he's featured a lot, like a lot in Then Came You, because he is Lily's best friend, and we do see Lily a bit in this book. Now in this book, we have Derek, our hero, is definitely very reluctant about love. He doesn't believe in it. He just kind of uses women, and he doesn't see any value of being committed to one. And Sarah is actually engaged to somebody else, but they just can't deny that this attraction that they have to each other. But they're of course two very, very different people. Sarah lives a very sheltered life, even though she is an author. Like, she knows things about the world, but she does live a very sheltered life, and obviously Derek does not, by running a gambling den, and his life has been very hard. Where I am at, like I said, 42% mark or so, they've like kissed a bit, like we've gotten like inklings of a romance, but like really not much. It's been more about like developing their individual characters. So I'm very interested to just jump back into it, and I will definitely do one more update tomorrow, and I think I'll probably just read one more book for this vlog, and then like I said, I'll just wrap everything up tomorrow. All right, it is Sunday, the last day of this reading vlog. Originally, I was planning on just doing one final update tonight as opposed to doing 2 updates in one day, but I started a book last night that I really just want to start talking about now with you guys, and then also do a final update on once I finish it. So I'll talk about that book in a minute, but first I wanted to wrap up my final thoughts on Dreaming of You by Lisa Kleypas, because I did finish this last night. I am giving this 3.5 stars. I know. I feel like there are Lisa Kleypas fans that are just feeling in pain right now, and they have no idea why. Let me tell you the positives first about this romance, and then I'll get to my personal issues with the book. There's no denying that there are some beautiful and swoony moments and quotes between Derek and Sarah. There's just some truly beautiful moments. No denying that, of course. My issue came with, one, like the pacing and the plot felt pretty slow most of the time. I found myself zoning out quite a bit, actually, which has only happened with one other Lisa Kleypas book that I can recall, and that was Secrets of a Summer Night. I also gave that book 3 stars. But yeah, that hasn't happened to me since that book, and I think that was like my first Lisa Kleypas book like a year or 2 ago, something like that. So I was very surprised that I kept zoning out during this book because of how hyped it is. So here's the thing too, we have Derek Craven. He is a very, very, very emotionally unavailable hero. Those are not always my cup of tea. Yeah, I liked him. I didn't love him because of that. I totally understand why he is the way that he is, but still, those types of heroes are not my personal favorite. I also found it very odd that, you know, we're given all this backstory, all this character development for Derek, and then all of a sudden at about the 70% mark, his character does a complete 180. All of a sudden, he's very openly affectionate with Sarah, very loving towards her, wants to have a future with her, all of these things, whereas before that, to say he was reluctant is putting it very, very lightly. He is somebody that never saw himself committing to somebody, and again, for very good reason. So it was just very strange to me that his character switched so much so quickly. There definitely were things that I really enjoyed about this story though, such as like how many cameos that Lily and Alex made in this book. They were the couple from book 1. I actually really liked the villain, Lady Ashby. She was one of Derek's past lovers, and I really liked having her as a villain. I feel like she was kind of a unique historical romance villain. I haven't read about a character quite like her before, so when she showed up, like, you knew shit was gonna go down and you knew it was gonna be entertaining. Yeah, so overall, like, it's good. It's just not as fantastic as people have hyped it up to be, in my opinion, and I don't think it's as good as some of Lisa Kleypas's other books. I for sure would recommend It Happened One Autumn, Then Came You, and Again the Magic. So much more over this one, especially if you're just trying to get into Lisa Kleypas. I would recommend reading one of those 3. Wish that I loved it more than I did. I fully expected to give this 5 stars going into it, but yeah, it just didn't measure up to Then Came You for me personally. So with that being said, late last night, oh, I'm so excited about this, I decided to just jump into The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is a book that has been so hyped actually on TikTok, which I didn't really know because I have TikTok. I don't go on it all that often, so I don't really know what books are being hyped up at the moment. But I really heard about this because it was a book of the month pick for September, and around the time of September, so I guess maybe around the time that the book came out, all of a sudden I started hearing hype about it just on BookTube. And I just knew that it was like a fake dating trope with like a grumpy hero and that it was supposedly Reylo fan fiction. I've heard a lot of people say that it really isn't. And if I went into this book without knowing that it was some kind of fan fiction, like there's nothing that really points you in that direction, in my opinion. Basically, at the very beginning of this novel, we have Olive, our heroine. She's a PhD student at Stanford. She needs her best friend An to believe that she's moved on from her ex Jeremy, because An wants to date Jeremy, but she doesn't want to hurt Olive's feelings, so she's been very hesitant about pursuing Jeremy. So to make An believe that she has truly moved on, her course of action is to just grab the next person that walks into their lab and kiss them. To make An believe that she's truly moved on. The guy that she grabs is this guy, Adam Carlson, Dr. Carlson. He is a faculty member at Stanford, but it's not really like all that taboo or forbidden or anything because first of all, there's not a big age gap between them. It sounds like he might be in like his early, maybe mid-30s, and Olive's about 25. It's basically explained that they're distant enough in the university that it's not forbidden for them to date. Okay, so she kisses him. He's like, what is going on? So Olive explains to him why basically they should fake date. And Adam is actually all for it because he has his own reasons to be in a relationship with somebody. And so yeah, they agree to do these fake dating Wednesdays where they meet up at the Starbucks on campus and they have coffee together so that people from their department will see them together and will believe that they're in a real relationship. So yeah, I love the vibes of this so far. Something that I'm really enjoying is that at the beginning of every chapter, she has like a different hypothesis about how an event in the chapter is going to go, and usually it becomes some sort of disaster. So it's great. I love Adam so far because he's described as being a grump. He's described as like terrorizing the biology department. Like he makes students cry all the time. He's basically just really blunt with his students. But we've really only seen him as being this very chill guy with Olive. And there was this scene where they were at the Starbucks and he was in a mood. He was in like a grumpy mood. And I loved the way that Olive was able to get him out of that mood. And it's just so cute because the way that Allie Hazelwood describes, like he'll have like a ghost of a smile on his face, or he'll like smirk a little bit when Olive says something really funny, or just like, it's just, the vibe is there. It's everything. I totally see why it's so hyped. I can't wait to read more of this. So with that being said, I will definitely talk to you guys later today. I'll wrap up my thoughts on this book. All right, so it's just a few hours later. It is 6:20 p.m. right now. Before we actually get into the reading update, I want to show you my favorite sweatshirt ever. This is from Fugly Barbie. It just says romance novels, and then the quote says they're actually really good stories, which is something that I say to my mom sometimes because she just calls romance novels trashy novels, especially the ones that have like a couple embracing on the cover. So Mom, if you're watching this, which I know you are, they're actually really good stories. I finished The Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood. No one is surprised that I gave this 5 stars. Okay, let me start this off by saying I think this is 100,000% worth all of the hype that it's been getting. I understand why it has such a universal appeal to it. This is so good. So this is grumpy hero, fake dating perfection. Let me just lay that out there, okay? I absolutely love this. From page 1, Olive and Adam, they were just giving me everything that I needed. I feel like this is one of those books that like perfectly met my very high expectations. Didn't go above, didn't go below, like perfectly met those expectations, and we love when that happens, right? I love the academic setting that we had going on. I feel like that was just like so perfect for Adam and Olive. One big vibe that I got from this book while reading this is it totally reminds me of a Mariana Zapata book, and let me explain that. First of all, the audiobook is narrated by Callie Dalton, who narrates, I believe, all of Mariana Zapata's audiobooks, if not all, definitely most of them. So that, for one thing, gave me the vibe of Mariana Zapata, but also this is a very slow burn romance because the fake dating goes on for a very long time. They don't get together until pretty much the very end. Like, they don't actually, like, for real get together until the very end. Also, we have Adam, a grumpy hero who is secretly, like, the sweetest man ever. Gives me vibes a little bit of Aiden from The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, which is one of my absolute favorite romance books ever at this point. Also, just like every Mariana Zapata book I've read 3 of her books at this point. I easily could have read at least 100 more pages about these characters and their story. There is only one steamy scene, but it is quite the steamy scene. It makes everything worth it. It's everything that you could want from a steamy or spicy scene. It is just perfection. So yes, all of that to say, if it wasn't already obvious, if you are already a Mariana Zapata fan and you haven't given this book a chance because you think the hype is too much, I would still highly, highly recommend at least giving this book a chance. I feel like it's impossible not to at least enjoy this somewhat. I haven't seen anybody give this less than 4 stars, so I truly think giving this book a chance is the way to go. Obviously, I highly recommend it. That's everything that I read this week. I read 8 books total. I own physical copies of 6 of them. I actually ordered physical copies of both Reckless Match by Kate Bateman and The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe. Because that's how much I adored both of these historical romances, I had to have physical copies in my collection. Also, just so you know, just throwing it out there, both of these are the new like mass market paperback size. I'll show you what a typical mass market looks like. It's this size, and then this is what the new size is. So you can see that it's a bit longer and like a little bit taller than like the traditional size, which at first I was a little annoyed just because like obviously these books aren't going to match all of my other historicals on my shelves like size wise, but I'm actually a fan of how these look. So then my top reads of the week, I'm gonna narrow it down to 3 and then I'll narrow it down to 1. This is not easy because, as you guys could tell, most of what I read this week was 5 stars, but I'm gonna narrow it down to The Love Hypothesis, The Lady Gets Lucky, and Then Came You. Those are my 3 top reads of the week. And if I had to narrow it down to just 1, this is not easy. I think I'm gonna have to go with The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe. I mean, you guys saw me just rave about this book. This was historical romance perfection. So that's going to be it for this reading vlog. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I don't normally do these like random weekly reading vlogs. I usually do reading vlogs just for like readathons or something like that, but I thought doing random reading vlogs like this that are centered around maybe a specific subgenre or specific theme would be really fun to do going forward on my channel. So if you guys have suggestions about what you think I should do reading vlogs for, definitely leave those suggestions down in the comments below. I love getting suggestions and book recommendations and all of those things from you guys. I would love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!